in the service of civilization. Yes, there were bad angels once. I make good angels now. That is how I took us to 9 new worlds. 9. A child can count to 9 on fingers. We should own the stars.
Yes, sir.
But I can only make so many. There's the seed that we must change for heaven.
No fucking bueno, hey? No motherfucking bueno to that. Yeah, no bueno. You've never been our friend, baby. You've never been our friend. You've always been mean and nasty. Give me a break. Here's his palace melting down. Here's his palace melting down. Pandemonium, they call it. Doesn't that mean doesn't that mean chaos? No, it means all demons. Pandemonium in Greek means all demons. Stems from Greek. The house of all demons. So this is his palace in hell, made of melt. Pretty much, they had to mine out the gold and the materials, and they built Pandemonium. Very interesting story you get in Paradise Lost. The poem, 17th century poem, 1667. That date that poem was made. Interesting date for such a poem. Recited from the perspective of Satan himself. That's correct. And I'm looking into all this stuff with seriousness because it's foolish to think that we know things, right? When we were just lied to about everything. And to think that we're still grown folks and that we know things, right? No, we have to take everything into consideration, everything as a possibility. And we cannot take things that we set in place from when we were deceived until now. We have to reconsider all of that stuff because we were deceived, we were lied to about everything. So, and when it comes to answering certain questions, because meltology is exploding, it's exploding so much that the demons are attacking it, baby. Give me a break. What does that mean? That's an omen. And what does that say? What are they saying? Slow down, you move too fast. We heard the music. And we're not slowing down for nothing. We just took off. Just took off like a rocket ship, baby. And we're going somewhere with this rocket. And we're actually going somewhere with this rocket, baby. Give me a break. So we got all different sorts of perspectives on the table, all sorts of new faces, new names joining in on the discussion, sharing evidence, making content, and it's growing, expanding, so much so that, yes, the demons are out attacking it. And that's an omen. That helps us along. It's an omen. It tells us we are moving in the right direction. We are figuring things out. And I think we have enough to figure out. I think we have enough clues to figure out what we need to figure out to do what we have to do. Now, meltology has many different perspectives, many different ideas, clues on the table, and they all vary. They're varying and differing perspectives and ideas, and it helps to have that because we can bring a broad range of ideas to the table. So we have people that think, hey, this could be lining up with scriptures. This all lines up with scriptures. And from that, even, we have folks who suggest this could be possibly suggesting that we're in a sort of season of Satan, a little season of Satan, and that we are living in the post-era after the 1,000-year reign of Jesus Christ on earth. So there's that we are living after the millennial reign of Jesus Christ, awaiting pretty much the world to be destroyed. And then after that, a new kingdom is made. So we have folks in that boat. And then there are folks who think that some sort of that this is Anunnaki aliens and stuff like that. And I see where they're getting that from. And there's all sorts of different ideas. And I agree with some of them and I don't. Some contradict others. But we're in the beginning stages. We're in the early beginning stages of a brand new field of research, and we are doing just fine. We're moving too fast, so they say, right? Now, pandemonium. See the fire, the heat coming from the bottom up here, the lake of fire. Now, we get these questions like, what do you think happened? I see them out because people are seeing them out and they're getting involved, they're getting interested, and they're joining in this growing. Now, they're asking questions thereof, like questions like what? Well, I see them out, but what happened? What do you think happened? When? Why? And those are the toughest questions to answer without any empirical evidence, right? Yes, we don't have any empirical evidence supporting a time frame, and we don't have any empirical evidence supporting any cause. But we do have empirical evidence that being melted bricks worldwide, showing evidence of having undergone some sort of a major cataclysmic catastrophe. All the infrastructure worldwide is showing the same imprint, the same signature imprint of damage. It seems to be one imprint of damage, and it's obvious, and it shows that heat, some sort of a I don't know what to call it. Heat came from beneath. Energy, excited energy came from beneath and struck the infrastructure from the foundation levels up. And it's the same imprint of damage, the same pattern everywhere, every known landmass. So this suggests that there was a catastrophe worldwide. That's the claim, and the evidence supports it. That being melted bricks with stamps on them, half the brick has a stamp on it, half the brick has gone stone. That has to be explained because that brick underwent an extreme condition. What that condition was, and why we find it that same condition in buildings and infrastructure worldwide. Okay, that's what meltology is asking. Now, we have all different ideas. So there's that. There's folks that think that there's Anunnaki aliens. That's what this is. And there's people that think that there was an advanced civilization. And they suffered some sort of an accident and destroyed themselves. I've heard many different ideas. I've heard ideas like what I'm blanking here. Let me think. Just invasion, war, just the usual, what you would generally think when you find a world destroyed, an entire world destroyed, because that's what we live in. We live amongst the ruins of a destroyed world. And what meltology is saying is that we see evidence and we look at evidence that is clearly showing and proving that that we were not told about some sort of a major world-ending event that happened in the history of. I'm not sure if it was mankind. That's what we're going to talk about. I'm not sure if this is mankind's history that we're looking at. Now that's a bold statement, eh? And not so much. Not when we have what we have to go off of. When we have what we have, all we have is what we have. So people are looking at scriptures and they're saying it lines up, and that does seem to be so. A lot of this lines up with scriptures. So I look at that, and I have been, and that's what we're going to look at today. I have some things that are going to bend and twist your mind a bit. Okay. Now my statement was, I'm not so certain that this is a human, or that the world that we see destroyed is necessarily a human world destroyed. Okay. Now, what do you mean by that? We'll talk about that. I'm not sure if it was our history. We may come just after this. So that's what the scriptures suggest, is that we came after this destruction, a major destruction. We came after the earth and the heavens were already made and inhabited, lived in. Then we came. So, and I'm going to prove that, and I'm going to show you how this all ties in. This is pandemonium. Looks very Art Deco-y and Romanesque and kind of Egyptian-esque as well. Here it is. There he is. There he is, baby, on his gold throne. They had to dig up gold. And the story about this, we'll talk about that. The story of how they built pandemonium Interesting. Here he is on his what? Yeah. There's the Statue of Liberty right there, baby. There he is. This is inside Pandemonium. And here it is, looking very Egyptian, Romanesque, and very Art Deco. All in the same, all in one. Which are, yeah. Here you have it. There he is. There he is. Break. And there's a weird sphere right here in this, and it's meant to be there. I'm not sure what that is. I looked at many different depiction or many different images, and they all have that. So this is going to be interesting. This is where it gets interesting. I'm saying that if you're going to now, I don't push religion. I'm not pushing religion here. I'm not pushing any one theory. I don't stand behind any one theory. I don't stand behind any one religion. I look at it all seriously, though, for my own sake, really, and for everyone else's sake, who I can help, because it's only going to work that way if we all help each other. So we have, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. He created it, so it was created. Okay, verse 2 now. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Now, our friend here, Dr. Jean Kim, is going to give us some mind-blowing parallels. Pay close attention. This will be 6 minutes, and then I'm going to get into some more things here. But please stay with me here and listen to this, because as far as explaining an X Factor event goes, I'm saying this. Verse 2 right here, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. That, my friends, is the X Factor event. That is the X Factor event, immediately. You say, how could it be in the first day, Pants? That's the first day of creation. No. God's days are how long? Some of you know this. 1,000 years. That's correct. I'll show you this in a moment. I'll show you later that this is so. God tells us. In the Apocryphon, the book of Adam and Eve, first book, in that Apocryphon, God tells us that a day in his time is 1,000 years. So this is in the first 1,000 years that the earth is created, and God had to destroy it. Who was living there? The angels. Let us begin.
These lines, we believe basically there's different time periods, and God gave different things to different people or groups of people throughout different time periods. It's that simple. The Genesis gap is one of them because there was a separate time period that occurred before Adam and Eve. A lot of people assume it just goes into the 6 days of creation. But we believe there's distinctions, there's differences with God's plan, and that there was something of a different time period before the 6 days of creation. So we come over here to the pre-Adamites. In other words, before Adam, and there were inhabitants or beings that are before Adam. Hence pre-Adamites or pre-Adamite. We believe they were the fallen angels that time, the fallen angels. Nephilim demons, they aren't in...
They wouldn't have been fallen yet, but they were angels.
They aren't made in the picture yet. They take time. Why are their roles important? We will soon see. But first we have to understand that it all began with angels. They're not fallen yet, all right?
Yeah.
They're angels. Now, how they became fallen is because of a fallen state at Genesis 1. If we start off at Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Okay, when God created everything, we know it's good, right? But notice right here, it's not good. Something bad happened at verse 2. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Notice
Now, so he said, God created the heaven and the earth, and it was and we know that it was good, because what he made was good. The heavens, they're good. The earth, it was good. But then in verse 2, he's saying yes. And the earth was without form, and it was void, and darkness was upon the face of the waters, and God's Spirit moved upon the face of the waters. Now, what is the waters? I'm saying it's the lake of fire. The lake of fire, which we saw in this image. In the image, let me go back, of pandemonium. This is the lake of fire. Okay? Those are the waters that I'm thinking that the Spirit of God moved across. So let's get back into this.
This right here, this looks like signs of destruction right here. It doesn't look like signs of creation or everything God made was good. So what must have happened was Genesis 1:1, God created everything and it was good, but something corrupted it. And then Genesis 1:2, that's why the Lord had to drown out the entire universe with a universal flood. So we will see that case.
A flood of fire.
When we go to the book of 2 Peter chapter 2. 2 Peter 3, excuse me. 2 Peter chapter 3. So in 2 Peter chapter 3, a lot of people will use this as Noah's flood, but you'll notice right here, this is not Noah's flood. This is something very different. We're going to go to 2 Peter chapter 3. Notice the context of verse 4. Notice the context of verse 4. 2 Peter 3, 4. The last part of verse 4 reads,
I'm screwing things up. Let me back up.
Text of verse 4, 2 Peter 3, 4. The last part of verse 4 reads, from the beginning of the creation, right? So the context is, it starts from the beginning of the creation. Yeah. Why, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right? Yeah. So we know we're in that timeline. But notice from the beginning of the creation, what happened? This matches with Genesis 1:2 about destructive waters. Verse 5, for this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water. Genesis 1:2, the earth was
standing in and out of the water. I think they're talking about the lake of fire here.
That by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water. Genesis 1:2, the earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Matches very well, see? Verse 6, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. But the heavens and the earth, which are now, by the same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Now notice right here, this is universal. This is not Noah's flood where it just drowns out the earth. This is heavens, plural, and the earth. Verse 7 is plain. That's a universal context. Verse 7. Heavens and earth kept in store, but they're going to be destroyed by God at the day of the final judgment. Why? We know that's going to be the universe itself. We know that.
I'm not sure why it's skipping like this. Hang on a moment. Let's see.
So this is a universal flood. It matches well with Genesis 1:1, Genesis 1:2. We believe those were the sons of God or the angels that were with Lucifer that time. So then they sinned against the Lord. That's why they fell. So because they fell with Lucifer's sin, that's the reason why the Lord drowned it all out. How do we know that? The reason why we know that is because of several passages right here. So first of all, we're going to, 2 Peter 3:7. When you notice that right there, the reason why the Lord sent judgment, and He's going to send judgment in the future one day, is because of the sins of people, right? So it's the people's sins. So that's the reason why God destroyed it. So there were signs of sins before. The second clue is Job. Let's look at the book of Job.
So the world was destroyed because of sin. Now, I find this to be quite plausible compared to most other ideas that I see on the table, because we see worldwide destruction. We see the power of some force able to render such a world, as Satan put it himself. He says he had no right to render such a world. That's what this is after the war in heaven, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's continue here. There's 1 minute left of this.
Let's look at the book of Job. And then we're going to look at the book of Job chapter 39, excuse me. We're going to look at the book of Job and chapter, right here. It's not even 39, I apologize. I think it's 38, sorry. All right, let's go back here. Yep, it's 38, chapter 38. Now notice that the passage pointed out when God started to create the earth and the universe, who was there present, rejoicing about the earth being prepared, created for them? Look at Job 38, and then look at verse 6. Whereupon are the foundations, see the foundations of the earth, thereof fastened, or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy. See that there? So notice that there were angelic beings who were there when God created the earth, and they were rejoicing. Right. Why, that's pretty obvious then, that the angels were the ones who inhabited the world, but then they fell with Lucifer's sin, and God drowned them all out. So Isaiah 14.
There we go. So, and God drowned them all out, because Satan was boasting in his pride, saying that he was going to reach up into the heavens and reach up above the stars and seat himself above the heavens, because he was down on the earth. And God said, hell no. Hell is where you will reside, baby. Okay, so now we're going to go to the companion Bible. Now watch this. Where do I have it here? Boom. We're going to look at those same passages. One from this companion Bible, and well, both from the companion Bible, but one from the book of Jeremiah, and one from, and that was a vision, and from Genesis. So again, in the beginning, and this is different. The companion Bible has a bit more, it's a bit more in depth, really. It's a bit more in depth with explanation, and I'll show you how that is. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So we just learned about that. And then after that darkness, and God darkened the place, he said, let there be light. And there was light. And he saw that it was good. And then he divided the light from the darkness, right? So then he put things in order and said, okay, now we're going to do things differently. Now we move on to the next image. What's this? Well, we have to consider, we have these dots here, and this helps us translate this a bit better. When you come over here, we have a dot here for, the important ones are was, because was right here can also be became. And also without form can also be looked at as waste. Right here, waste. Without form or waste. Next. So when you reform that, you get this. Rather than the earth was without form and void, you get the earth became a waste and a desolation. Became a waste and a desolate. Oh, and void. Void down here. Desolation. Where is it? void, desolation. It's somewhere. Oh, I didn't get a screenshot of that. Anywho, so it became a waste and a desolation. And now we go into the book of Jeremiah, and he's talking about a vision he had where he beheld the earth, he beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens they had no light. There's a reason why the heavens had no light. The sky was blackened. So I beheld the earth, and lo, it was without form and void, and the heavens they had no light. I beheld the mountains, and lo, they trembled, and the hills they moved lightly. So the buildings were smoldering, moving around. Hot, baby. I beheld, and lo, there was no man, and all the birds of the heavens were fled. So there was no man in the earth. But he beheld mountains, right? So they're telling us right there. And then watch this. I beheld, and lo, the fruitful place was a wilderness, and all the cities thereof were broken down at the presence of the Lord and by his fierce anger. For thus the Lord has said, the whole land shall be desolate, yet I will not make a full end, for this earth shall mourn. Okay? And this is all in a vision when he saw the earth, when it was without form and void in the beginning. He had a vision. God gave him a vision, and he saw the earth when it was without form and void. And this is what he saw. He beheld mountains and the hills, and they were moving, and they were trembling, and they were moving lightly. He beheld that there was no men, but all the birds in the heavens were fled. The fruitful place, so it was teeming with a wilderness, and the cities were all broken down at the presence of the Lord in his fierce, fiery anger. Right? And for thus hath the Lord said, the whole land shall be desolate. Desolate, there's that word again, desolate and waste, desolate, instead of without form and void. Desolate, void. Next. And then I found this interesting down below. For this the earth shall mourn, and the heavens above be black, because I have spoken it, and I have purposed it, and I will not repent, neither will I turn back from it. The whole city shall flee for the noise that I shall make. And that's what we hear. That's what we have here. So he said, I came down and I toasted this plate. I cooked it out, baby, and the sky is black. There was no light up in the heavens. You couldn't see the heavens. It was so blackened. Okay? The heavens above be black. And this is all speaking about when the earth was without form and void, which we know is in the very beginning. In the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth. And it was without form and void. And God moved upon the face of the waters like a fire. That's what I get from that. And I find this to be interesting, eh? I don't know, maybe you think I'm nuts. I'm sure half of you left, and half of those folks have probably unsubbed. That's not why I'm here. That's not why I'm here, baby. I'm just sharing what I'm finding interesting here. I'm contributing to Meltology however I can. I can show you a few more things. I have a lot I could show you. Let's start here. So, yeah, I'm not religious. So when you're talking about religious, I just wanted to show this. So in a range of social cultural systems where you have the practices, the behaviors, with different ethnic groups, if you're talking about religion in that sense, and these control mechanisms, no, I'm not about that. But if you're talking about, look over here, religion in this sense, the belief in and worship of a superhuman power like a god, or a pursuit or interest to which someone ascribes supreme importance. To that, religious I am. But I don't stand behind a religion like these ones here. But I do pursue and ascribe supreme importance to my quest. And I consider all of it to be important and to be looked at and to be worthy of being looked at. That being Bible, Quran, anything, all of it. I look at all of it, and I find this all to be very interesting. Like all the religions, they all say the same thing. It's interesting. Every religion will say that Christ is a way. He's a way, and that he is, or it's like the Buddhists. They'll say he is in his time Buddha. They'll say Christ is just Buddha in his time. So they agree he is one of the ways. They all agree that Christ, Judaism and Islam, they all agree he's a prophet. And then you have, it's just the same thing. They all agree that he is a way, and they'll all say that he is a way. But Christ says that he is the only way. I find that interesting. He does not say that their way is the way. He says his way only is. But all the other ones do say that our way is the way as well. But Christ, his way also is. The Buddhists, the Hindus will say that he is Krishna, an incarnation of Krishna. So they all agree that he is a way, but they also say that their way is the way. But Christ says his way is the only way. I just want to point that out. I find it interesting, just to note. But they all do agree that Christ is either from God or is God incarnate. And what God really is, what Jesus Christ is, what that means, what the way that we get it is that it means that is the vessel that God prepared to come into, that the Creator prepared to come into for our salvation. They prepared a body and he came in unto it. That's what Jesus Christ is. So I don't know why people get these ideas that he's a metaphor and stuff. We've never been told that. What they say is that Jesus Christ is a vessel of which God will incarnate. Okay. Anyhow, now, so I don't know whether you get. You get these spin-offs from like different ideas, and they're all interesting. I find them all interesting. Like Gnostics, they see God as a demon. They see God as an archon, as king of the archons, a self-made demon. And but they still find that Christ is their way out, but they call it Christ consciousness, and they don't see him as a real person, as a vessel for which God will incarnate. They see all of which we all are, that is all of us, and it's very interesting. But I find a lot of strange. You get strange feelings from some things, and some things jive, some don't. And me, I just look at it all openly from the outside, and I do look at things seriously for what they could be and what they are. And I take into consideration that anything I look into could be either right or wrong, whether I feel it's right or not. I still consider that I could be wrong, because I've taught myself that I could fool myself 2 or 3 times. I've done that with the geology. I've gone through the possible giant tree thing a little bit. I didn't really follow that too much, but I went through the mud fossil thing. I'll tell you what. With Roger. Give me a break. Wasting my time. Fooling myself with pareidolia. And now I can see that was a deception. So here I was thinking, oh wow, I just was duped. I found mud fossils, and I'm thinking, oh shit, I was duped again. I found meltology, and this is the truth. So I have to consider that I could be wrong on anything once or twice. So I stay open. Stay open, and just be aware, and just and follow your heart. Is what your heart is saying. It always tends to end up taking you somewhere where you ought to be. It takes you where you were needed. So Paradise Lost, I can get into this stuff. Let's see. Let me pull up a few things. Let me show you something from the book of Adam and Eve. Now, I told you I'll show you where God says that 1,000 years is a day for him. Now, Adam and Eve, they knew someone that we know very dearly in this meltological community, that being Janky Rock. Yes, yes. Adam and Eve, they knew Janky Rock. They met Janky Rock. And they were scared of Janky Rock, baby. They cowered and they threw themselves on the floor. They died. And they were scared of Janky Rock. And they had to learn to live. Oh, there's my heaven. They had to learn to live with Janky Rock. And they did. And it was tough. But this is interesting. Let's just listen to this.
And God commanded him to dwell there in a cave in a rock, the cave of treasures below the garden. Chapter 2. But when our father Adam and Eve went out of the garden, they trod the ground on their feet, not knowing they were treading. And when they came to the opening of the gate of the garden, and saw the broad earth spread before them, covered with stones, large and small, and with sand, they feared and trembled, and fell on their faces from the fear that came upon them. And
there you have it. They saw the ground. They came out of the garden, and they saw stones on the ground and sand. And what do we know about stones and sand, baby? What do we know about stones and sand? Yes, i.e. melted brick, i.e. brick. And they found the world strewn with sand and stones, and they threw themselves on the floor, and they died. He had to raise them. Watch.
they were as dead, because whereas they had hitherto been in the garden land, beautifully planted with all manner of trees, they now saw themselves in a strange land which they knew not and had never seen. And because at that time they were filled with the grace of a bright nature, and they had not hearts turned towards earthly things. Therefore had God pity on them, and when he saw them fallen before the gate of the garden, he sent his word unto Father Adam and Eve, and raised them from their fallen state. Chapter 3.
So now we get into that 5 days, and because this is their time out. So they transgressed God's commandment, and Satan lured them into try to join the gang. And they all got kicked out. They all got booted out. And so they got put on timeout, and where they go? They got sent to Earth, baby. They got sent to our realm, the land of the meltdown, and they were scared.
God said to Adam, I have ordained on this earth days and years, and thou and thy seed shall dwell and walk in it until the days and years are fulfilled, when I shall send the word that created thee, and against which thou hast transgressed, the word that made thee come out of the garden, and that raised thee when thou wast fallen. Yea, the word that will again save thee when the 5 days and a half are fulfilled. But when Adam heard these words from God, and of the great 5 days and a half, he did not understand the meaning of them. For Adam was thinking that there would be but 5 days and a half for him to the end of the world. And Adam wept and prayed God to explain it to him. Then God, in his mercy for Adam, who was made after his own image and similitude, explained to him that these were 5,500 years, and how one would then come and save him and his seed.
So there you have it. A day for him is 1,000 years. Just wanted to make that point. And then this, if you haven't read into this is an apocryphon. It's part of the Apocrypha, rejected books. Now, Apocrypha are the rejected books of the Bible and of other holy texts. And so you have Apocrypha, you have deuterocanonical Apocrypha, and these are books that have been removed and rejected from biblical canon. So the secondary canon. And then you have other apocryphal texts which never made it into the canon, official canon. So, but they still shed light, and they still shed light on the Bible and the characters and its history, and so on and so forth. So that's what we look into. I look into all these different. I know some of you are as well, but you find lots of interesting stuff, like the Book of Enoch and the Book of Giants. This one, I mean, when we're speaking about an X Factor event, the only X Factor event that we get is this, like what we're talking about right here. In the beginning of the Bible, in the beginning of the scriptures, there was a war in heaven. And the only time we ever see evidence of any worldwide, or any word of any worldwide fiery end-all event happening, that would be the wars of heaven. That would be the wars of heaven. When fire and naphtha and brimstone were thrown from heaven, and this world was destroyed, and they had to watch from the heavens. The angels had to watch from heaven, all those down below who couldn't escape, and they had to do it from above because it was so destructive. Is what they say. They had to watch from above because it was that destructive. And that's the same event that we're talking about in verse 2. So when we get into these, this is where it gets interesting. So let me find them here. And here's an interesting thing right here. Many were killed, 400,000 righteous. So righteous were killed as well in this event, this X Factor event. Righteous with fire, naphtha, and brimstone, and the angels veiled, or covered, protected, moved out of sight. They had to get up out of the way because this was a destructive weapon that they used, an end-all weapon, a weapon of terror. So, and there's just more. These are all different fragments from the different fragments and different interpretations of them from the scrolls, the Dead Sea Scrolls. And many of these are depicting that war in heaven and stuff that you get like in the Book of Enoch as well. It's all in line with that. And thereupon those powerful demons spoke, and thus committed. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty much it follows the same. Yeah, there was something very interesting. Oh, so here. They took and imprisoned all the helpers that were in the heavens, and the angels themselves descended from the heaven to the earth. And when those 200 demons saw those angels, they were much afraid and worried. They assumed the shape of men and hid themselves. So they're talking. So these are the angels down on earth, and they saw the angels from heaven were coming and they were coming to destroy, and they assumed the shape of men and hid themselves within the men. So then thereupon the angels forcibly removed the men from the demons. So they removed the actual innocent people from the demons who were hiding amongst them, laid them aside, put watchers over them, or a guard of safety. The giants were sons, each with, so these are fragments. So these dots, they don't have the text for that. So they're kind of fragmented. But so with each other, and had been born to them, forcibly removed them from the demons, and they led half of them eastwards and half of them westwards to 4 huge mountains towards the foot of the Samuro mountain, in 32 towns which the living spirit had prepared for them. So in these mountains there were 32 towns. And I'm wondering if that was in the mountain, but this was during this event, so I'm not sure. But so the angels came down. The fallen angels, they hid themselves amongst the men. Angels came down, removed the innocent men from them, and then they fought a huge battle where the angels eventually used fire, naphtha, and brimstone and ended it all. So that's what we have here. And this is all the war in heaven before mankind. This is all before mankind. And that's what's so interesting about this. It's interesting because but it's supposed to be before mankind, but we have the angels removed from the men. It's hard to say. So this is like, I'm not sure if it's before mankind. It's hard to say when the war in heaven happened exactly, because sometimes it would seem it's before mankind. Other times it would seem like men are here. Because in these texts here, it kind of puts them both together. The Book of Enoch kind of separates them. Just kind of combines them. Interesting that these fragments do that. So there was just inhabitation before. There was inhabitation of this world, whether by men or just angels, or men and angels. Maybe I think. Well, I guess yeah. If this was before the garden, I don't know. But this is why I like this stuff so much, because of these mysteries. You know, what to make of this. It seems like sometimes the war in heaven seems to be just angels, and then it seems to be men involved, like you have here. But they're removing the men from them so they can fight their battle, and it's just weird. And that's pretty much what you get in all these fragments. It's all sorts of just different interpretations, all very similar. So, in the story about the great fire, like the way in which the fire with powerful wrath swallows this world and enjoys it. Like unto this fire, that is the body, swallows the exterior fire, that is in fruit and food, and enjoys it. Wow. And again, like unto the story in which two brothers found a treasure and fight. So that's the sons. The great fire swallows. The great fire swallows the righteous who were burned in the fire. And what fire? The fire. Well, we see evidence of a great fire, don't we? We see evidence of a great fire. So there were righteous people and men and angels, I guess. And see these in these Coptic there's Coptic versions here. They're speaking. They have Enoch in the text, in the years of Enoch. Enoch was veiled. So they're speaking about Enoch's. So a lot of this information came from Enoch. These fragmented scrolls. Now, if they're from the time that they say they come from, I don't believe that whatsoever. I don't buy the time periods. We don't know what year it is right now. Come on. But yeah, I think that's pretty much that's pretty much it for that. And I'm gonna leave it there for now. I think I've pretty much gone over everything I wanted to for this one. We've gone over that. We saw Pandemonium. Biblical Apocrypha. We read some of those. This is the Book of Enoch. And let's just read the first few lines. So this is right at the very beginning here. The Holy Great One will come forth from his dwelling, and the eternal God will tread upon the earth, even on Mount Sinai, and appear in his great strength and his might from the heavens of heavens, and shall be smitten with fear, and the waters shall quake, and great fear and trembling shall seize them unto the ends of the earth, and the high mountains shall shake and be shaken, and the high hills shall be made low, and shall melt like wax before the flame, and shall melt like wax before the flame, and the earth shall be rent in sunder, and all that is upon the earth shall perish, and there shall be a judgment. So that's saying that some sort of, so that the way that God judges here is by fire, and they melt down like wax. And this is God telling the angels this. This is God telling the fallen angels this, that you're going to be rendered in a fiery abyss. And they will be smitten with fear, and the watchers will quake. So this is talking about the watchers. The watchers are before before our story. So this is talking about an event. This is not like the after Revelation. This is talking about an event involving the Watchers. So this is a fiery event where the hills melt like wax that involves the Watchers. So this is something that already happened, in my opinion. This is talking about the X Factor event and what they were going to be seeing. I love you all. Take care. This was just my little take on what I think the X Factor, what I find interesting, and what I think is interesting as far as answering some of these questions. This is what I find intriguing and what I look at thus far, what I found the most intriguing, I think. However, like I said, I'm open to anything and everything, and I don't ever close anything off and just call it, until it's been made clear and known. I will stay open to whatever, But it's snowing finally. First snowfall this whole winter in Minnesota. Well, maybe our second, but it's melting. So, anywho, take care.